Take a deep breath and picture our world's oceans. It's not hard to do. We see a world of impossible color and boundless life, a living tapestry woven over billions of years. It's a place of majestic blue whales, their songs echoing across entire basins, and kaleidoscopic coral reefs, bustling with more activity than our biggest cities. This is the cradle, the great womb of life itself. Everything that walks, crawls, or flies today can trace its ancestry back to some humble organism that first pulsed with life in these waters. The ocean is our planet's memory, its engine, and its heart. It feels permanent, eternal, a force of nature so vast that it seems impervious to our fleeting human dramas. But what if it isn't? What happens when you take this complex, beautiful engine of creation and you break it? What happens when the cradle that nurtured life for eons is forced to start over from scratch, but with the rules of the game fundamentally and violently changed? This isn't a thought experiment about a distant asteroid or a dying sun. This is the story of a future we are actively writing, a slow-motion catastrophe set in motion by our own hands. A future forged in the crucible of runaway climate change, suffocating pollution, and the silent, creeping death of ocean acidification. It begins subtly with a loss of color. The vibrant reefs, those magnificent underwater cities, start to bleach, turning into skeletal ghost towns. This is the first terrible symptom of a planetary fever. As our atmosphere traps more heat, the oceans absorb it, warming to temperatures that the delicate polyps of coral simply cannot endure. At the same time, the colossal amounts of carbon dioxide we pump into the air dissolve into the sea, turning the water more acidic. Imagine the very water turning against its children. For countless tiny organisms at the bottom of the food chain, this acidic shift is a death sentence. Their protective shells, built from calcium carbonate, begin to dissolve in the corrosive water, like sugar in tea. This is where the first great silence begins. As these foundational species vanish, a catastrophic chain reaction ripples upwards through the entire food web. The krill and plankton that form vast, living clouds in the water disappear, and with them the food source for almost everything else. The fish that fed on them starve. The seals and dolphins that hunted the fish vanish. The great whales, who filtered the seas for krill, fall silent, their ancient songs fading from the ocean's memory one by one. Over thousands of years, the vibrant, noisy, living ocean we know today becomes a desolate, eerily quiet blue desert. The horror here isn't a monster with teeth. It's the profound, planet-wide emptiness. 1,000,000 years pass. Then too. On these timescales, the changes are no longer just ecological. They become geological. The chemical composition of the entire ocean is altered. The pH balance is fundamentally rewritten. The oxygen levels have plummeted in the vast, stagnant zones of the surface, and the currents that once circulated nutrients and heat around the globe have shifted into new, unfamiliar patterns. This isn't a wound that can simply heal. It's a complete reboot, a rewriting of the planet's base code. The age of the familiar fish, the mammals, the sun-loving reptiles, that great chapter of Earth's history is over. A new, much stranger one is about to begin. But where? Not on the sunlit surface. The future of life isn't in the light. It's in the eternal darkness. Far below the barren surface, miles down in the crushing pressure of the abyss, is a world that barely noticed the apocalypse above. This is a realm that has always played by different rules. Down here, sunlight is a myth, a forgotten rumor from a world above the sky. Life has never relied on the sun. Instead, it has huddled for warmth and energy around wounds in the Earth's crust. Hydrothermal vents, spewing superheated water thick with sulfur and heavy metals. This is a world powered by chemistry, not photosynthesis. A world of aliens on our own planet. While the sun-eaters of the surface world perished, the chemical eaters of the deep thrived. They are the ultimate survivors. The bacteria and archaea that feast on methane and sulfur didn't just endure the mass extinction. For them, it was an opportunity. Without competition from above, they began to flourish, blooming into colossal, miles-wide mats of slimy, living film across the abyssal plains. And where there is a feast, something will always evolve to take part. The scavengers of the deep, the ghost white crabs and primeval hagfish, the creatures that have always lived on the dead and the dying, suddenly found themselves in a world of endless bounty. They were the inheritors of this new, dark earth. And so our story truly begins. The stage is set. The surface of the planet is a sterile wasteland, shimmering under a sun that no longer gives life to the seas. The vast, deep ocean is a chemical cauldron, a dark nursery for a new kind of biology. The great dying is over. The silence has settled. But if you could listen closely, in the crushing blackness of the seafloor, you might hear a new sound. Not a song, but a scraping. A rhythmic, methodical noise of something moving across the bacterial fields. Something patient. Something hungry. Something that has been waiting for this moment for a very, very long time. The old world is gone, and what is about to rise from its ashes will be nothing like we could ever imagine. Let's leave the dead surface behind. We descend, sinking through miles of empty, sterile water, leaving the ghost of the sun's light to fade into a memory. Down, further down, into a realm of absolute black and crushing pressure that would pulverize any creature from our time. This is the abyss, a world within a world. For millions of years, this place has been a footnote in the story of life, a remote outpost for the weird and the hardy. But now, with the world above silenced, the abyss is no longer a footnote. It has become the entire book. And down here, in the crushing dark, the silence is finally being broken. The source of the sound, and the source of this new age of life, is the planet's own inner fire. We arrive at the seafloor to a landscape that defies imagination. This is a forest of hydrothermal vents, towering chimneys of black rock belching superheated, toxic smoke into the freezing water. In our time, these were fascinating oddities. In this future, they are the oases of a new world. The energy for life no longer comes from the gentle rays of a distant star. It comes from the furious, chemical-rich heart of the earth itself. The rulebook has been thrown out. Photosynthesis, the process that powered our world for billions of years, is dead. Welcome to the age of chemosynthesis. What does that even mean? It means life is eating poison and breathing fire. Vast colonies of single-celled organisms, extremophiles, have learned to do the impossible. They metabolize the raw, caustic chemicals spewing from these vents. They feast on hydrogen sulfide, the stuff that smells like rotten eggs, and thrive on methane. For them, this toxic soup is a banquet. They have captured the raw geological energy of the planet and turned it into biological energy. They are the new plants, the new algae, the new foundation for everything that will follow. And they are starting to spread. At first, they were confined to the immediate areas around the vents, but evolution is a relentless innovator. New strains emerged, ones that could survive further from the heat, forming thicker, more resilient colonies. Over countless generations, they carpeted the abyssal plains, spreading out from the vent fields like a living stain. What were once isolated pockets of life have now merged into a single, contiguous biosphere stretching for thousands of square miles. These are the chemical gardens. They are not green, but shimmer with the eerie, iridescent colors of bacteria metabolizing heavy metals. Deep purples, oily blacks, and shimmering metallic bronzes. Imagine flying over a new kind of planetary surface. Below you, not rock or sand, but a living, pulsating carpet of life. In some areas, it's a thick, velvety mat. In others, it grows into strange, gelatinous, branching structures that reach up into the dead-still water like ghostly trees. This is the new rainforest, the new prairie. This single, sprawling biome now represents the vast majority of the Earth's biomass. It is a battery of biological energy on a scale that is difficult to comprehend, a feast laid out across the ocean floor, waiting for a guest to arrive. And here the mystery deepens. A garden this vast and rich cannot exist for long without a gardener. The laws of evolution are absolute. Where there is a massive, untapped food source, something will inevitably evolve to consume it. But as we scan the endless, shimmering plains of bacterial life, we see nothing. No fish, no worms, no great beasts. Just the slow, silent growth of the gardens in the eternal night. It's an ecological puzzle. A banquet with no one to eat it. The sheer amount of energy being produced here is staggering, yet it seems to be going nowhere. But then we start to see the signs. They are subtle at first, almost looking like geological features. Long, straight furrows, plowed through the bacterial mats, sometimes running for miles in an unbroken line. But these aren't random cracks in the seafloor. They are deliberate, organized. As we look closer, we see more complex patterns. Huge, sweeping curves, concentric circles scraped clean from the living carpet, and vast, checkerboard-like grids where patches of the garden have been systematically removed. The scale is immense. These are not the feeding trails of some small, mindless worm. These are the marks of something enormous, something methodical. This isn't grazing. It's harvesting. The geometric precision is haunting. It speaks of a behavior that is efficient, repeated, and utterly alien. What kind of creature operates on a scale this large? What kind of being, born in absolute darkness, would develop a feeding strategy that looks from a distance like mathematics? The horror of this place is not in the darkness, but in the dawning realization that something is down here with a purpose. The chemical gardens are not a wilderness. They are a farm, and the farmer is somewhere out there in the dark, tending to its crops. The mystery of the chemical gardens is a haunting one. Those geometric patterns, scraped into the living seafloor, are too perfect, too vast to be an accident of nature. They speak of a mind, or at least a powerful, driving instinct working on a scale that defies our land-based logic. It's the unsettling feeling of walking through a vast, silent cornfield in the dead of night, knowing the farmer is out there somewhere, but not knowing what it is or what it wants. We are floating above a planetary-scale farm, tended by a ghost. The question is no longer if something is down here. The question is what is it, and what happens when we finally see it. We arm our virtual submarine with every sensor we can imagine, plunging into the deepest trenches where the furrows are freshest. The silence is absolute, broken only by the imagined hum of our equipment. Then a flicker on the edge of our lights, a disturbance in the water, a pressure wave so powerful it rocks our vessel. It's not a current. It's the wake of something impossibly large that just moved past us, something that dwarfs any submarine ever built. We follow the wake, our lights cutting through the inky blackness, and then we see it, the farmer. And it is a monster beyond all Paleozoic nightmares. It has no eyes, no face, nothing we would recognize as a head. Before us looms the descendant of a creature we know today, the humble deep-sea isopod, a tiny, armored scavenger that cleans the scraps from the ocean floor. But this is no tiny scavenger. Freed from the constraints of predation and fueled by an endless buffet of bacterial mats, it has grown, and grown, and grown. What we are witnessing is deep-sea gigantism taken to its terrifying, logical conclusion. The creature before us is the size of a municipal bus, a living tank of chitin and muscle. Its segmented body is covered in a thick, black carapace that seems to absorb the light, and it moves on dozens of thick, pillar-like legs that end in sharp, metallic points. These legs are the answer to the first part of our puzzle. It is their rhythmic, relentless march that carves the great furrows into the seafloor. This creature doesn't graze randomly. It systematically plows the bacterial fields, churning the living soil to promote new growth in a monstrous form of agriculture. Its head is a horrifyingly complex array of grinding mandibles and shearing plates, working constantly to shovel metric tons of the bacterial mat into its maw. This is not a simple beast driven by hunger. It is a biological harvesting machine, a creature that has become a fundamental part of its own ecosystem, both consuming and cultivating its food source in a dark, silent cycle. And it is not alone. As our eyes adjust to the sheer alienness of this world, we realize this is not one creature, but one species of many. An entire kingdom of colossal arthropods has inherited the earth. We see flatter, broader forms, true grazers that skim the surface of the gardens like gigantic robotic lawnmowers. We see more agile, spider-like variations that stalk the edges of the mats, hunting the smaller, worm-like organisms that have evolved in the bacterial soil. It is a new Cambrian explosion, but one made of armor and claws. The age of vertebrates, of bone and sinew, is a forgotten memory. This is the age of the exoskeleton, the era of the insectoid titans. In the absolute darkness, a new language has evolved, the language of light. These armored giants are adorned with rows of photophores, biological lights that glow with a cold, chemical fire. They are not random. We witness two of the bus-sized harvesters approach each other, and their bodies erupt in a complex, synchronized cascade of strobing patterns. A silent, hypnotic conversation of blues and greens. This is how they communicate across the vast, dark plains, warning rivals away from their territory, broadcasting their fitness to potential mates. Some of the predatory forms have taken this a step further, developing a single large lure on an antenna that pulses with a slow, gentle rhythm, a beacon of false hope that draws smaller creatures to their doom. Their dominance is absolute. No other form of life could challenge them here. A fish, even one grown to a huge size, would be a fragile snack for these walking fortresses. Their external armor, reinforced with minerals extracted from the chemical gardens, makes them nearly indestructible. They are slow, methodical, and patient. They are creatures born of pressure and darkness, and they have mastered it completely. They are the undisputed kings of this new world, silent monarchs of a kingdom of eternal night. The entire deep ocean, the cradle of this new Genesis, belongs to them. But for all their terrifying majesty, they are prisoners. Their massive, heavy bodies are perfectly adapted to the crushing pressure of the abyss, but they would be helpless in the low-pressure environment of the surface. Their entire biology is tied to the chemosynthetic energy of the vents. The sunlit world is as alien and deadly to them as the abyss is to us. So we are left with a planet starkly divided. The deep is a thriving, monstrous kingdom of armored scavengers, and the surface remains a vast, sun-scorched blue desert. Life has conquered the darkness, but how can it ever hope to reclaim the light? The ocean has found a new way to live, but it is trapped in its own basement. Another, even more profound, evolutionary leap is needed to bridge this impossible divide. Our journey has shown us a world torn in two. In the crushing abyss, an empire of armored monstrosities thrives in eternal darkness, harvesting oceans of chemical-fueled bacteria. But up here on the surface there is nothing. A vast, sun-drenched desert, miles of sterile blue water under a silent sky. It's a profound paradox. The energy is here, pouring down from the sun, but life cannot seem to take hold. Why? Because the essential building blocks, the nutrients like nitrates and phosphates, are all trapped in the deep. They were carried down with the bodies of the dead during the Great Extinction, and are now being jealously recycled by the new abyssal ecosystem. The surface is an empty plate at a banquet. So, how could life ever return? How do you build a house when all the bricks are locked in the basement? For millions of years, it seemed impossible. The few surviving photosynthetic microbes were starved, scattered, and struggling. They were ghosts in a graveyard, clinging to a desperate existence in the nutrient-poor upper layers. But evolution is patient, and in the face of oblivion, it becomes ruthlessly creative. The pressure to survive here was immense. Any mutation, no matter how small, that allowed an organism to capture a stray molecule of nutrient, or to stay afloat in the sunlit zone just a little longer, would be an unimaginable advantage. For eons, it was a war of attrition. Then, one day, in one microscopic cell, a new idea sparked. It wasn't a mutation for strength, but for cooperation. The breakthrough was symbiosis on a scale never seen before. Certain species of algae, the descendants of ancient kelp and sargassum, evolved a sticky outer membrane. When they bumped into each other, they stayed linked, forming long, resilient filaments. Then, another trick emerged. They began to weave these filaments together, creating small, buoyant rafts. They developed specialized cells, gas-filled bladders that acted as unsinkable flotation devices, trapping pockets of oxygen and nitrogen. These weren't just mats of algae anymore. They were engineered structures. They were the first humble prototypes of a biological revolution, a new kind of life that built its own world. Over thousands of generations, these small rafts met and merged. They grew, their collective buoyancy allowing them to support more and more weight. They became floating meadows, then islands, and eventually, after millions of years, they formed the Great Floating Reefs. These are not landmasses. They are living, breathing continents of woven algae and symbiotic bacteria, some the size of Australia, drifting slowly on the new ocean currents. The surface is a dense, springy canopy of photosynthetic fronds, a tangled, alien forest of greens, reds, and browns, all optimized to capture every photon of sunlight. It is a planetary-scale act of creation. Life did not recolonize the ocean. It built a new one on top of the old. And as soon as this new real estate appeared, life rushed in to claim it. The tangled surface of the reefs became a new kind of ground. For the descendants of hardy seabirds that survived the extinction, these permanent, floating platforms were a paradise. With a safe place to nest and raise young that stretched for thousands of miles, the intense pressure for long-distance flight vanished. Over generations, their wings shrank, their legs grew stronger, and they became flightless stalkers, prowling the kelp canopy like tigers in a jungle. They hunt the new species of insect-like creatures and flying fish descendants that have made the reef's surface their home. The world of the reef, however, is not just its surface. Dangling beneath each continent-sized mass is a second ecosystem, a hanging forest of root-like filaments that reaches down for miles into the twilight zone. This dense, dark labyrinth provides a perfect refuge. Small fish, crustaceans, and cephalopod descendants, the few who survived in the open ocean, found a home here. This new, three-dimensional habitat spurred its own evolutionary explosion. Some fish, in a stunning reversal of one of life's greatest journeys, began to leave the water again. They developed reinforced fins to haul themselves out of the water and onto the damp, tangled fronds of the reef, evolving primitive lungs from their swim bladders to breathe the air. They are not returning to land, but to a living, floating world made by their neighbors. These reefs are more than just habitats. They are planetary engineers. As they drift, their deep, dangling root systems act like colossal nets, snagging the scarce nutrients that occasionally well up from the deep. They pull these precious resources to the surface and lock them into their own biomass, restarting the nutrient cycle in the sunlit zone. They breathe, and in doing so, they pump vast quantities of oxygen back into the atmosphere. The Earth is slowly being terraformed again, not by humans but by algae. A new, stable planetary state is emerging. A world of two empires, forever separated. Below, the dark, chemosynthetic kingdom of the armored giants. Above, the green, photosynthetic kingdoms of the floating reefs. For now, these two worlds are utterly oblivious to one another. The reef dwellers bask in the sun, unaware of the monstrous farmers harvesting bacteria miles below. The armored titans of the abyss march on in their eternal darkness, having never seen the light, unaware of the floating green continents above them. The planet has found a new balance, but it is a divided one. Two magnificent, complex ecosystems, built on two different sources of power, locked in the same planetary body but forever separate. But this division cannot last. Nature abhors a separation. The final act of this planetary drama is yet to come. The evolution of something that can unite these two worlds. Something that can bridge the impossible gap between the fiery heart of the Earth and the light of the sun. We have a planet divided against itself. A world of two empires, separated by a gulf of miles-deep, empty water. In the abyss, a kingdom of armored giants thrives on the planet's geothermal heat, hoarding the precious nutrients of life in an eternal, self-contained cycle. On the surface, a green new world of floating continents has conquered the sun, but it is starving, forever cut off from the building blocks of life locked away in the darkness below. This equilibrium is a recipe for stagnation. It's a planetary stalemate. But the story of evolution is the story of breaking stalemates. And the solution, when it comes, is more terrifying and magnificent than anything that has come before. The revolution begins in the most violent place on Earth, the throat of a black smoker vent. Here, a new symbiosis is born. One organism, a descendant of the chemosynthetic bacteria, evolves a way to anchor itself directly to the rock, creating a living foundation that can withstand the superheated, mineral-rich blast. but it partners with something new. A colonial organism, perhaps a far-flung descendant of an ancient coral or tube worm, that has developed a strange and radical mutation. An insatiable drive to grow upwards. Not outwards like the bacterial mats, but straight up, towards the unreachable rumor of the surface. This partnership creates the seed of a spire. The base organism feeds the column, providing it with the energy and raw materials siphoned directly from the vent. The column, in turn, grows, secreting a rigid, mineral-infused biological cement to create a hollow, segmented tower. It rises with agonizing slowness, a black finger pointing up through the crushing dark. It is an act of insane ambition. It must build a structure capable of withstanding millions of pounds of pressure per square inch, a living skyscraper growing from the seafloor up, through the twilight zone, and into the light. This is not an animal. This is biological architecture on a geological scale. For thousands of years, it climbs. Finally, after an ascent through utter blackness, the tip of the spire reaches the sunlit surface. And then it blooms. It doesn't sprout leaves. It unfurls. What breaks the surface is a vast, crystalline structure, like a colossal, iridescent flower made of silica and living tissue. This crown is a photosynthetic engine, its crystalline facets perfectly angled to capture sunlight, while also acting as condensation points, drawing fresh water from the humid air. From the sea, it looks like a strange, glittering island, a new and permanent landmark on a world of endless blue and shifting green. But the true purpose of the spire is not its crown. It is the hollow channel running down its core. The chemosynthetic base, fused to the hydrothermal vent, acts as a furnace. It uses geothermal energy to superheat the water within the spire's central column, creating an immense, continuous pressure differential. The result is a geyser. The spire is a biological pump, a living siphon. It is actively sucking up the super-rich, nutrient-dense abyssal water from the seafloor and shooting it out of its crown at the surface. It is a fountain of life, a direct pipeline from the planet's core to its sunlit skin. The effect is instantaneous and dramatic. The sterile blue desert around the base of the spire is transformed into a churning, primordial soup of nutrients. Phytoplankton, starved for millennia, bloom in a riot of life. The great floating reefs, which had been drifting aimlessly, are drawn to this new font of creation like moths to a flame. They are pulled in by the currents and the promise of endless food. They cluster around the spires, their root systems drinking deeply from the nutrient-rich outflow. The two ecosystems are no longer separate. The spire has become the bridge, the umbilical cord connecting the dark mother of the abyss to the sun-fed child on the surface. Now, a new geography defines the planet. Looking down from orbit, you would see the great green masses of the floating reefs, no longer scattered, but organized into vast, spiraling galaxies, each one centered on the glittering point of a spire. The armored farmers of the deep must now navigate a new forest of monolithic, silent pillars that have invaded their domain. The world is wired. The two empires have been unified by a third, far stranger power. The entire ocean is being slowly transformed into a single, integrated network, a planetary-scale circulatory system with the spires as its mighty heart, pumping the blood of the planet. This is the climax of our story, but it's an unsettling one. We are witnessing the birth of a life form that is as much a geological process as it is a biological entity. It has no brain, no consciousness we could ever comprehend, but it is re-engineering the entire planet to suit its own existence. It is a creature of both fire and light, darkness and air. The awe it inspires is matched only by a sense of cosmic horror, the realization that life can achieve a scale and a purpose so far beyond our own that we are rendered utterly insignificant. The planet has a new metabolism, and before this silent, implacable god of the new earth, all previous life is but a fleeting dream. It's time to pull back. We leave the glittering spires and the great green reefs behind, rising up through the thin atmosphere until the curve of the earth becomes visible. But this is not the blue marble we know. The familiar shapes of our continents are gone, drowned beneath a global ocean. What we see instead is a world of breathtaking, alien beauty. From space, the Earth is now a dark sphere webbed with glowing filaments of light, the faint, bioluminescent signatures of the spires, connected by the swirling, galaxy-like clusters of the floating reefs. It is organized. It is networked. It is a planet that has not just recovered from a catastrophe, but has been reborn as something utterly new. It has become a single, global organism. Our journey has taken us through a planetary hell and back. We saw an ocean die, its vibrant life silenced in a chemical apocalypse of our own making. We descended into a deep, dark realm where life clung to the planet's inner fire, giving rise to an empire of armored farmers in a kingdom of eternal night. We watched life, against all odds, invent a new way to conquer the sun, building living continents from scratch. And finally, we witnessed the birth of the spires, biological gods that fused the two worlds together, turning the entire ocean into a single, interconnected mind. We went looking for the future of life and we found a new Earth. It's easy to label the things we saw as monsters. The bus-sized, eyeless harvesters marching across the abyssal plains are the stuff of nightmares. The entire story is tinged with a sense of cosmic horror, the unsettling feeling that we are small and insignificant in the face of nature's true scale. But were they really monsters? The armored giant wasn't evil. It was a farmer, a gardener, a creature that found a perfect equilibrium with its environment. The colossal reefs weren't an invasion. They were a solution, a brilliant act of biological engineering that brought life back to a dead world. The spires aren't alien gods. They are the planet's new heart, a circulatory system made real. What we have witnessed is the terrifying, amoral, and magnificent resilience of life itself. Life does not care about our sense of beauty, our morality, or our desire for the familiar. It has only one directive: to continue. It will take any form, adopt any strategy, and build any kind of world necessary to achieve that goal. The monsters we saw are simply the answers to the questions the universe asked of them. When the Sun-Eaters died, the Chemical Eaters took their place. When the world was divided, a bridge was built. We may find these forms alien and frightening, but to life, they are simply what works. This journey forces us to ask a profound and unsettling question. What is the end goal of evolution? We tend to see it as a path leading towards complexity, maybe even towards intelligence as we know it. But this future ocean suggests another possibility. Perhaps the goal isn't a thinking mind trapped in a single skull, but a thinking planet. The networked system of spires and reefs, circulating energy and information on a global scale, acts less like an ecosystem and more like a brain. The Earth has become its own intelligence, a slow, vast, and purposeful being whose thoughts are ocean currents and whose neurons are living mountains. And this is where the true horror of our story lies. It's not in the future. It's right here in our present. Every speculative creature, every bizarre ecosystem we have explored, was born from a single real-world catalyst. A mass extinction event driven by rapid climate change. The rising temperatures, the ocean acidification, the collapsing food webs, these aren't science fiction plot devices. They are headlines from our own newspapers. They are the measurable reality of our world right now. This future, in all its terrifying grandeur, is not a fantasy. It is a plausible trajectory. We are standing at the very beginning of this story. We have a unique and terrible privilege. We are the architects of the next 100 million years. The choices we make today are mixing the chemical ingredients for whatever comes next. We are the ones warming the water. We are the ones acidifying the seas. We are the ones silencing the whale songs. The future we've explored is just one possibility, a dark and awe-inspiring testament to life's ability to thrive in the ruins we leave behind. But it serves as a stark warning. The world that comes after us will not be our world. Life will go on, but it will not wait for us, and it will not preserve our memory. Let's make one final descent, not into the future but back to our time. We sink into our own modern ocean, down to a hydrothermal vent teeming with the strange, primitive life that inspired this entire journey. We see the tube worms, the ghost white crabs, the shimmering bacterial mats. They are all here, in the darkest corners of our world, quietly thriving on the Earth's inner fire. They have been here for eons, waiting in the wings. They are an echo of our planet's deep past and a chilling prophecy of its potential future. The next chapter of life is already being written. We just haven't learned to read the language yet.